One of my best friends died from cancer about 2.5 years ago, and I talk really openly about her. I talk about her all the time. Her name was Gretchen, and I do that really purposefully. The reasons that I talk on social media a lot about Gretchen, the reason why I wrote a book about the last conversation that I had with Gretchen on the phone is because I just don't feel like there's a lot of people out there talking about losing friends. And I know that she is not the only woman who passed away in her 40s from cancer. I know that's not true. And yet, I don't hear a lot of people talking about friend loss. Of course, the loss was devastating for her children, for her husband. I don't feel like talking about friend loss minimizes the losses that the other, maybe more close in the way that we think about things, right? The people who were closer to her. I don't feel like it minimizes their experience for me to talk about just how devastating it was to lose her, you know? I think friendship is something that especially really helps us get through our midlife years. And so to lose a friend of more than 20 years at this midlife stage, it was really, really hard. And recently I was so encouraged because I haven't listened to her music in a really long time, but Sarah Bareilles, I don't know how to pronounce her last name correctly. She actually has just had an album come out on Grieve. And for her, she also lost two friends. Several years before I lost Gretchen, a friend of mine, we had sort of fallen out of touch. Like we would occasionally email and things like that. And she had moved away. So had Gretchen. They had both moved away from Minnesota, which is where I was living at the time that this first friend, Wendy, died. But yeah, I too have lost a couple of friends to cancer in their 40s. And it's really, it's affected me really deeply. And I think I talk about it because I know you're out there. I know you're out there, people who have lost a friend. Even if it was, I think we minimize loss sometimes. And we do think, well, I wasn't in touch with them anymore. But that can make loss even more complicated, to be honest, because there can be feelings of guilt or regret. So I don't think that's a reason not to talk about loss or not to consider loss to be real. I think also, like I was saying, just because it's not your spouse or your child or your parent, that doesn't mean that it wasn't a significant loss in your life. And I was fortunate to be in therapy with a really brilliant therapist in Minnesota at the time that Wendy passed. And she helped give me some ideas for how to honor her memory and just to take seriously the feelings of grief that I was having and the feelings of being conflicted that I was having because, we had sort of fallen out of touch in some ways. but she had been very, very significant in my young motherhood life. Our daughters were born just a few months apart, and that's a really bonding time. You're just going through it all at the same time. It was her first child and my first child. So that was a significant friendship. And so in both of these circumstances, I found it really helpful to process about that person and to intentionally remember, all of the things that I loved about them and like happy memories that I had with them. So my therapist at the time that Wendy passed in 2019, she gave me a smooth stone. She kept like a jar or a basket of smooth stones. She let me pick one that I liked the feel of, and she encouraged me to set it on my desk and write out memories of Wendy. And having that practice was really helpful. She said, do this as long as you feel that you need to, until you feel like you come to a place of closure. And like set the rock next to you while you do this, sort of as a witness, right? Like just as something tangible. So you're writing, that's tangible. This stone is tangible. And then she was like, it's really helpful with grief grief is never over, but you can bring it to a place of like feeling less intense and feeling some closure with it. So she was like, right until you feel like you've gotten all of the things out that you need to say, and then take that stone and go put it in some water, like as not like a glass of water, but like throw it into a lake or an ocean or a river, just as like symbolizing like the closure of this remembering process. That was so beautiful to me. And I actually carried that stone around for several years, just waiting for the place that I felt like I could release it, and where I wanted to like release this very special witness to my grief, in a place that would like honor Wendy. A mutual friend of ours told me that she had always wanted to travel again with her family. She had traveled like in her younger years all over the world, and she had really wished that she could do that with her kids. And she never really got the opportunity to travel, I think, internationally with her kids. And then she was gone. And so for me, it was really meaningful to hear from this mutual friend that Wendy really admired what we were doing, which was traveling internationally with our family. We were on the cusp of leaving the States and living abroad. Yeah, she was just inspired, I guess, by what we were doing, because she had always wanted to do that. And she was happy for us that we were doing it. So what I did was I carried that stone as we started our very bumpy journey to move abroad. You can you can watch our journey, or like hear this story in a video that starts here. But I carried it to the Republic of Georgia, where we lived for several years, and I released that stone that I carried around in my purse with me. It wasn't a very heavy stone, it was pretty small. And I released it into the Black Sea. And I did that just to honor her and like bring her with me on this adventure as a family. And that felt really significant. I want to talk really openly about grief. I want to name the people that I loved and aren't here anymore in their human form. And I want to do that because I want to encourage you that it's okay to speak about the ones in your life that you loved and who've passed. And that it's not, you don't need to worry about other people's feelings. You don't need to avoid talking about them because you're afraid of making other people uncomfortable. Honestly, when I speak about Gretchen particularly, because we were very close up until the time of her passing, and I just tell people, hey, like I tell new friends, I've made quite a few new friends since her passing, and I just say like, listen, I have a best friend that passed away, and I talk about her, and it doesn't mean I'm sad. You don't need to worry about me. I talk about her because she was such a big, important part of my life. And so I find that that's an easy way, well, first of all, to test people. Maybe they don't feel comfortable with you speaking about someone who's died. And if they don't, like, they're probably not for you, especially if you're somebody who has experienced significant loss. Yeah, I think those of us who are just sort of in this club of people who understand suffering. And I honestly don't have a lot of patience or interest in being in relationship with people who don't understand suffering, because I do feel like it gives you I'm not saying like people only who have like lost somebody significant, but just like people who understand suffering. So maybe they've been through a divorce. Maybe they have dealt with chronic pain. Just the people who have figured out how to live and how to be honest about pain and about emotions. Those are my people. You are my people if you are somebody who either wants to be honest about your own pain, but maybe you haven't felt like you could be in the past, or you are somebody who's just like, you say the thing, and you be honest about the difficulty. Those are my people. And those will be your kind of people if you want to speak about those that you've lost. And it's very healing. It's very healing to not have to hide a part of you. My mother and father lost a baby, like he lived to be 8 days old. That was my brother. He was 2 years older than me. And I don't think they had anyone teaching them. I know that they didn't really have anyone teaching them about grief and how to carry that. And I remember my mom telling me she had a friend who had children really at the same time. Like she had a son who didn't pass away really at a similar time to my mom. And I think she felt very guilty about that. And so my mom sensed that and never, I think, felt really comfortable talking about and processing her grief around that friend. Because honestly, here's the situation. That friend was making it about herself, right? Like, oh, I feel guilty that I have this child who survived. And I'm sure that was out of love, but still, it's easy to come to people's grief and make it about yourself. Sometimes that is in an effort to connect. But I know we've all heard, those of us who have grieved, I know we've heard or experienced the kind of situation where somebody talks about like a significant loss and then somebody's like, oh yeah, it was really hard when I lost my dog, and gosh, it sucks losing pets. So please don't hear me minimize the loss of pets, but that isn't going to go over well with someone who's lost a child or a spouse or whatever. Even though pet loss, it means a lot. I mean, my pets, when they pass, I'm going to be a disaster. We we house sat for 4 months, and when that pet passed away and I didn't get to go like see him again like I had expected, his name was Winston, and I was a disaster. As a disaster, I was so sad. I cried a lot because I loved that dog. So I'm not saying that pet loss isn't real loss. I'm just saying that sometimes when people are trying to connect with you and trying to show up in your grief, they say things that are really insensitive and like aren't the same. As my friend Lori says, they don't understand the scope of the situation. Oh, bless. So anyway, I don't know, that was sort of a tangent about dealing with people who don't get grief, but I'm going to talk about it here. And I hope that if you are somebody who is grieving, you will stick around. I invite you to hang out here with me. I try to be really real about things, especially the hard stuff. I also try to be real about what losing friends at such a young age has inspired me to do. It really has kicked me into gear in my own life of like, what am I doing? Life is short. I need to be like embracing life and finding joy and figuring out what makes me feel alive. Those things are born out of grief for me, not in an attempt to ignore what's hard, but birthed out of what is hard. I want to live a beautiful life, and I don't want to take my life for granted. And I want to like dream and manifest things and like create a beautiful life that I enjoy living in, because I have come face to face with mortality as I've lost friends. So those are all of the things I like to talk about here. Actually, those are not all of the things. I like to talk about a lot of things, and sometimes they're really random, but I would invite you to stay here if you are somebody who likes to talk about what's real, especially who doesn't want to shy away from dealing with reality in your 40s, and you want to have a life well lived, even while you hold the things that break your heart. So I'm Andy. I'm an artist and a mom. I live in Portugal, and I'm here to remind you to find beauty today, however you can find it. I'll see you tomorrow.